Welcome to a chapter a day. Listen to me carefully. You were born to expand, and expansion requires power. And in this physical world, power is expressed as money. Let me say something that may shock you. If you are not pursuing massive wealth, you are resisting your own divine expansion. Because money is not evil. Money is not corrupt. Money is not unspiritual. Money is energy. Money is freedom. Money is amplified choice. Money is the ability to express the highest version of yourself in the physical realm. You cannot awaken the fullness of God consciousness while trapped in survival mode. You cannot access your highest spiritual potential while worrying about rent, bills, and limitations. Scarcity shrinks consciousness. Abundance expands it. This audiobook will dismantle the lie that poverty is spiritual. It will shatter the illusion that struggle is noble. It will rewire your understanding of wealth as a divine responsibility. Because the truth is this: the richer you become, consciously, ethically, expansively, the more impact you create, the more freedom you access, the more of God you embody. This is not about greed. This is about capacity. This is about becoming powerful enough to carry divine vision into physical reality. You don't need to feel guilty about wanting more. You need to feel responsible for becoming more. Over the next 3 hours, you will learn how money operates across the physical, mental, and spiritual planes. You will dismantle your internal money guilt. You will step out of survival mode. You will claim abundance as your birthright. And by the end, you will understand one undeniable truth. To fully awaken God within you, you must become as rich as you are capable of becoming. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Money is energy. Money is energy. It is not paper. It is not numbers on a screen. It is not coins in your hand. It is stored value. It is directed intention. It is condensed life force. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. When you understand this, everything changes. Money is neutral. Money magnifies. It magnifies your beliefs. It magnifies your habits. It magnifies your identity. If you believe you are small, money will magnify small. If you believe you are expansive, money will magnify expansion. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. Look at nature. Nature does not ration sunlight. The ocean does not ration waves. The forest does not apologize for how many trees it grows. Expansion is natural. Money is one of the ways expansion expresses itself in the physical world. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Poverty is contraction. Contraction is fear. Fear is a lower state of consciousness. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. You do not get money. You match money. Wherever attention flows, money follows. This is law. If your attention is on lack, you create more lack. If your attention is on value, you create more value. If your attention is on service, money organizes around you. Creators who shift from "I need money" to "I provide value" experience immediate change. The moment the internal dialogue shifts from desperation to contribution, the income shifts. Because money responds to energy. Money is neutral. Money magnifies. Say it again. Money is neutral. Money magnifies. If you think money is evil, it magnifies your fear. If you think money is powerful, it magnifies your power. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Most people attempt to control money externally. They budget. They cut expenses. They hustle harder. But they never shift internally. They never become more money. You cannot have more money before you be more money. This is not metaphorical. It is energetic law. To be more money means to embody value, clarity, precision, confidence, decisiveness. Money moves towards certainty. Money avoids chaos. If your emotions are unstable, your finances will reflect instability. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion, whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. People do not buy logic. They justify with logic, but they purchase with emotion. If you are emotionally contracted, you repel financial flow. If you are emotionally expansive, you attract it. I once worked with a client who wanted to make more money. He was skilled, intelligent, capable, but he was pricing from fear. He kept saying, "I just need more clients." I told him something simple. Do not chase more clients. Be more money. He looked confused. So I told him to double his prices. He hesitated. Fear surfaced. Scarcity screamed. But he did it. Immediately, every client left. Silence. Most people would panic. But this is where discipline enters. It's about discipline. He held the identity. He refused to shrink. He refused to lower the price. He decided he was now operating at a higher energetic frequency. Within a few months, he had not only replaced the clients, he doubled and maybe even tripled the level he was at only a couple months ago. What changed? Not the market, not the economy, not luck. His identity changed. He became more money. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Money is energy, and energy obeys identity. Many people grew up in what I call a survival frequency. I remember someone telling me they hated spending money, even on food. They would ask themselves if eating was worth it. Think about that. Questioning whether nourishment is worth the cost. That is not logic. That is emotional scarcity. That is contraction. When you grow up believing that spending is loss, you create tension around money. And tension blocks flow. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. If you treat money as threat, it responds accordingly. If you treat money as ally, it moves toward you. I grew up seeing people in churches pray for money. They would ask God for provision, but they maintained a state of consciousness rooted in poverty. They declared lack with their emotions. They spoke hope but felt scarcity. And money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. You cannot pray for abundance while emotionally rehearsing fear. That contradiction blocks energy. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. If the Creator is infinite, how can reflecting that infinity be wrong? There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Suffering does not equal sanctity. Struggle does not equal depth. Expansion equals alignment. Say this out loud. I like money. Notice what happens. Does guilt appear? Does it feel wrong? Does it feel selfish? That is the money-guilt complex. Conditioning. Programming. Until you dissolve that guilt, you will sabotage wealth. Money is neutral. Money magnifies. If you feel guilty receiving, you will unconsciously push money away. If you feel worthy receiving, money stays. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means emotionally abundant, psychologically stable, energetically generous. It means you circulate value freely. It means you understand that giving and receiving are one motion. The breath does not only inhale. It inhales and exhales. Money behaves the same way. When you cling, you suffocate flow. When you circulate, you amplify flow. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. If you spend with fear, you create fear. If you invest with certainty, you create growth. This is why discipline matters. It's about discipline, not hustle, not burnout, not anxiety. Discipline of thought, discipline of emotion, discipline of identity. You wake up each day and declare internally, I am value. I create value. I circulate value. Wherever attention flows, money follows. So where is your attention? On bills? Or on building? On lack? Or on leverage? On fear? Or on service? Shift attention to contribution. Ask daily, how can I create undeniable value today? When you focus on value, money organizes around you. Money is neutral. Money magnifies. If you are generous, money magnifies generosity. If you are impactful, money magnifies impact. Wealth does not corrupt. It reveals. And being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. Understand this deeply. You are not trying to get money. You are aligning with it. You are mastering its energy. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Mastery begins internally. You stabilize your emotions. You remove guilt. You increase skill. You elevate identity. You become more money. You cannot have more money before you be more money. This chapter is not about tactics. It is about recognition. Money is energy. It responds to your consciousness. It mirrors your emotional state. It amplifies your identity. When you master the energy, the numbers follow. You are not chasing wealth. You are embodying it. And when you embody wealth internally, external wealth becomes inevitable. You now understand the first law. Money is not outside of you. It is responding to you. You have mastered the concept of money as energy. Now it is time to dismantle one of the greatest illusions ever sold to humanity. The illusion that poverty is holy. Chapter 2. Poverty is not spiritual. It is limitation. Spirituality is expansion. It is growth. It is elevation. It is increased capacity. Restriction is not spiritual. Suppression is not spiritual. Chronic lack is not spiritual. Lack limits expression. Lack limits impact. Lack limits generosity. When your resources are constrained, your reach is constrained. When your reach is constrained, your influence is constrained. When your influence is constrained, your ability to serve at scale is constrained. That is not enlightenment. That is limitation. Struggle is not sacred. Expansion is sacred. For centuries, humanity has romanticized suffering. We have been told that the holiest path is the hardest one, that the purest soul owns nothing, that to want more is to betray divinity. But spirituality is not about shrinking your life. It is about expanding your consciousness. And consciousness expands through capacity. Money increases capacity. Capacity to build. Capacity to give. Capacity to protect. Capacity to teach. Capacity to innovate. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Poverty does not automatically produce wisdom. Scarcity does not automatically produce virtue. Limitation does not automatically produce enlightenment. Often, it produces anxiety. It produces contraction. It produces survival thinking. And survival thinking narrows awareness. When your mind is preoccupied with bills, survival, and basic security, your nervous system is in defense mode. Defense mode is not transcendence. Defense mode is not creative flow. Defense mode is not divine alignment. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If your state of consciousness is survival-based, your financial experience reflects that. Spirituality is expansion, not restriction. Look at history clearly. Buddha was born into royalty. He experienced luxury before renouncing it. He understood abundance before choosing simplicity. King Solomon is described as extraordinarily wealthy, yet remembered for wisdom. His prosperity did not negate his spiritual insight. Prophet Muhammad was a successful merchant. His financial acumen and trade networks strengthened his influence and reach. Krishna is depicted surrounded by opulence, beauty, and celebration. His divinity was not associated with deprivation. Moses was raised in Pharaoh's palace. He was educated and exposed to power structures before leading transformation. These figures were not limited by poverty. They operated from access, from influence, from capacity. Struggle is not sacred. Expansion is sacred. Wealth has historically funded cathedrals, universities, hospitals, art, architecture, and innovation. Patrons financed Renaissance masterpieces. Merchants funded explorations. Industrialists built infrastructure. Transformation required resources. Vision without funding remains a dream. Funding converts vision into structure. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. Creation itself is excessive. It overproduces. It overflows. Nature does not produce a single seed. It produces thousands. Why would divine intelligence design abundance everywhere except in human economics? The contradiction is psychological. Many people equate poverty with humility. But humility is clarity about your role. It is not self-sabotage. It is not enforced smallness. You can be humble and wealthy. You can be grounded and powerful. You can be generous and affluent. Struggle is not sacred. Expansion is sacred. Ask yourself honestly, if you had 10 times the resources you have now, could you serve more? Could you protect more? Could you create more? The answer is obvious. Money amplifies reach. Money builds platforms. Money funds solutions. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. There is nothing enlightened about refusing growth. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. When you reject money, you are rejecting a form of creative energy. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Many people unconsciously glorify struggle because it protects them from responsibility. If wealth is bad, they never have to pursue it. If success is corrupt, they never have to risk growth. If expansion is ego, they can remain comfortable. But spirituality demands growth. Growth demands capacity. Capacity requires resources. You cannot build schools with intention alone. You cannot feed communities with positive thoughts alone. You cannot innovate medical breakthroughs with meditation alone. Consciousness expresses through matter, and matter requires organization, and organization requires energy. And money is one of the most concentrated forms of organized energy available in society. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means expansive in thought, expansive in identity, expansive in self-permission. When you feel internally abundant, you allow external abundance. You stop equating holiness with hardship. You stop confusing simplicity with scarcity. There is a difference between detachment and deprivation. Detachment means you are not owned by money. Deprivation means you do not allow yourself access to it. One is power. The other is fear. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If you feel unworthy of wealth, you restrict it. If you believe wealth conflicts with spirituality, you repel it. You cannot have more money before you be more money. To be more money is to expand your internal standard of what is acceptable. Acceptable income, acceptable lifestyle, acceptable influence. Raise your internal standards. Raise what you believe is normal. Struggle is not sacred. Expansion is sacred. Expansion requires discipline. It's about discipline. Discipline to upgrade your skills. Discipline to confront your conditioning. Discipline to dissolve guilt. Discipline to build structures. Wealth without discipline collapses. But discipline without ambition stagnates. Spirituality integrated with wealth creates sustainable impact. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. If you feel conflicted about wealth, you create resistance. If you feel aligned with wealth, you create momentum. Alignment is powerful. When spirituality and prosperity are no longer enemies in your mind, energy moves freely. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. You are not meant to shrink your life to prove purity. You are meant to expand your life to demonstrate possibility. This chapter dismantles the myth. Poverty is not holiness. Limitation is not enlightenment. Contraction is not divinity. Spirituality is expansion. And expansion in the modern world includes financial growth. You now see clearly. Struggle is not sacred. Expansion is sacred. You have reframed wealth as capacity, not corruption. You have detached holiness from hardship. You have reclaimed abundance as alignment. Now that the illusion of sacred poverty is dissolving, we move deeper. Because even when you understand this intellectually, your nervous system may still operate in fear. You may still be living in emergency mode, and emergency mode blocks expansion. Chapter 3. Transcend survival mode immediately. Survival mode is a temporary state. It was designed for moments of physical danger. It was designed for immediate threats. It was designed for short bursts of intensity. It was never meant to be your lifestyle. Yet many people live there permanently. They wake up braced. They move through the day guarded. They make decisions from pressure. Survival mode activates fear-based decisions and short-term thinking. When the mind perceives threat, it prioritizes immediacy. It seeks relief, not strategy. It seeks safety, not expansion. You cannot build empires in emergency mode. Emergency mode is reactive. Empire building is proactive. Emergency mode asks, how do I survive this week? Empire building asks, how do I design the next decade? The nervous system cannot focus on vision while scanning for danger. This is not philosophy. This is biology. When you perceive scarcity, the brain activates the amygdala. Stress hormones rise. Cortisol increases. Adrenaline sharpens immediate focus. Blood flow shifts away from the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning, innovation, and long-term reasoning. Scarcity narrows cognitive bandwidth. Your thinking becomes compressed. Options feel limited. Creativity declines. You default to habits. You repeat what feels familiar. You cling to certainty, even if that certainty is small. You cannot build empires in emergency mode. Financial survival mode produces specific behaviors. You underprice your value to secure immediate approval. You accept misaligned opportunities for quick cash. You avoid strategic investments because they feel risky. You focus on avoiding loss rather than creating growth. Avoidance is not expansion. Avoidance is defense. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If your consciousness is defensive, your financial decisions mirror that defense. You negotiate from fear. You invest from hesitation. You sell from insecurity. And people feel it. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. If your emotional frequency is survival, your offers carry urgency and tension. Urgency repels trust. Tension signals instability. Clients, partners, and investors respond to energy before logic. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. When your internal state is calm and expansive, your external results follow. When your internal state is contracted and anxious, opportunities constrict. You cannot build empires in emergency mode. Survival mode also distorts time perception. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels critical. Everything feels like it must be solved immediately. This creates impulsive decisions. Impulse is not strategy. Impulse is discharge. It seeks to eliminate discomfort quickly. Empire building requires patience. It requires sustained vision. It requires delayed gratification. That is discipline. It's about discipline. Discipline to pause before reacting. Discipline to evaluate beyond the moment. Discipline to invest in long-term leverage. Consider someone who lives paycheck to paycheck. When an unexpected expense appears, panic rises. That panic influences the next decision. Maybe they withdraw from investments. Maybe they cancel development opportunities. Maybe they take on draining work just to feel secure. The cycle reinforces itself. Stress reduces clarity. Reduced clarity produces suboptimal choices. Suboptimal choices sustain stress. This loop is neurological, but it is not permanent. The brain is adaptive. When you intentionally cultivate safety, the nervous system recalibrates. Financial safety begins internally. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means stable under pressure, steady under uncertainty, grounded in identity. When you know who you are, external fluctuations do not define you. You cannot have more money before you be more money. To be more money is to embody certainty even before the evidence appears. Certainty signals safety to the nervous system. Safety unlocks creativity. Creativity generates solutions. Solutions generate value. Value attracts wealth. You cannot build empires in emergency mode. So how do you transcend survival mode? First, you regulate your physiology. Breathing deeply slows the stress response. Movement discharges excess adrenaline. Sleep restores cognitive capacity. This is not abstract spirituality. This is biological alignment. Second, you expand your time horizon. Stop making decisions based solely on immediate relief. Ask, will this matter in 5 years? Will this build leverage? Will this increase my capacity? Empire builders think in layers. They stack assets. They build systems. They cultivate relationships. Survival thinkers chase transactions. Transactions end. Systems scale. Third, you increase skill. Skill generates confidence. Confidence reduces perceived threat. When you know you can create value, fear decreases. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. Abundance consciousness calms the nervous system. It replaces "there is not enough" with "I can create more." That shift alone widens cognitive bandwidth. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. When you understand that money is energy responding to value, you stop seeing it as scarce. Energy can be generated. Energy can be redirected. Energy can be multiplied. Scarcity becomes a temporary condition, not an identity. Identity matters. If you identify as someone trying to survive, you unconsciously maintain conditions that validate that identity. If you identify as a builder, your decisions align with construction. You cannot build empires in emergency mode. Survival mode also isolates you. It convinces you to compete for crumbs. Empire consciousness collaborates. It recognizes scale. It recognizes leverage. It recognizes that long-term prosperity grows through networks and shared value. The discipline is mental. It's about discipline. You interrupt catastrophic thinking. You challenge assumptions of doom. You choose expansive interpretations. You train the nervous system to associate growth with safety. Over time, the baseline shifts. Calm becomes default. Clarity becomes natural. Strategy replaces panic. And when strategy replaces panic, wealth becomes structured. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Chronic survival erodes health. It compresses imagination. It restricts generosity. Expansion requires psychological space. Psychological space emerges from internal security. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. When consciousness stabilizes, finances stabilize. When consciousness elevates, finances expand. You cannot build empires in emergency mode. You build them from composure. You build them from vision. You build them from disciplined repetition. Today, you decide that survival is no longer your identity. You choose creation over reaction. You choose design over defense. You choose long-term leverage over short-term relief. This shift is immediate, not because circumstances vanish, but because your internal orientation transforms. You are no longer bracing. You are building. And once survival mode dissolves, something else surfaces. A deeper pattern. A quieter barrier. The guilt around wanting more. You have stabilized your nervous system. Now you must confront the internal programming that whispers wealth is wrong. Chapter 4. The Money Guilt Complex is Programming. The money guilt complex is learned. No child is born ashamed of abundance. No child apologizes for wanting more toys, more space, more joy. Desire is natural. Guilt is installed. Cultural narratives teach that wealth corrupts. Religious distortions imply that holiness requires sacrifice. Family conditioning warns that rich people are greedy. These ideas settle quietly into the subconscious. They become emotional reflexes. You grow up hearing subtle statements. Money changes people. Don't get too big for your boots. People like us don't make that kind of money. It's better to be humble than wealthy. Over time, ambition feels dangerous. Success feels like betrayal. Wealth is responsibility, not betrayal. Yet many equate financial growth with disloyalty. Disloyalty to family. Disloyalty to community. Disloyalty to identity. If you surpass the economic level of your environment, you risk standing out. Standing out triggers fear. Belonging is primal, so the subconscious creates limits. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If your consciousness associates wealth with isolation, you will unconsciously cap your earnings. You will get close to breakthrough, then retreat. You will approach a new level, then sabotage momentum. I have seen this repeatedly. A high performer scales income dramatically. New contracts arrive. Revenue increases. Visibility expands. Then something shifts. They delay proposals. They avoid follow-ups. They underdeliver. They create unnecessary conflict. Income drops. Stress returns. Familiarity resumes. Relief appears. This is not incompetence. It is conditioning. Wealth is responsibility, not betrayal. The nervous system equates financial elevation with social risk. If your early environment criticized affluent individuals, your subconscious protects you from becoming one. Protection feels like safety, but it is limitation. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Yet if poverty was normalized in your upbringing, wealth feels foreign. Foreign feels unsafe. Unsafe triggers self-correction. You unconsciously restore yourself to what feels acceptable. That is why you cannot have more money before you be more money. To be more money requires a new self-concept. It requires permission. It requires emotional congruence with expansion. Consider how people react when they say, "I like money." Say it internally right now. Notice the sensation. For many, there is tension, a slight discomfort, a whisper of impropriety. Why? Because liking money was framed as materialistic. Materialism was framed as shallow, and shallow was framed as morally inferior. So enjoying wealth became suspect. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. Rejecting money is rejecting a form of creative force. When you experience guilt around wealth, you distort your relationship with that force. You downplay your ambition. You minimize your goals. You soften your pricing. You hesitate to scale. Wealth is responsibility, not betrayal. Responsibility to manage resources wisely. Responsibility to expand impact. Responsibility to demonstrate what aligned prosperity looks like. Guilt shrinks capacity. Responsibility expands it. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. If you feel conflicted about earning more than your peers, your emotional field signals hesitation. Clients sense uncertainty. Partners sense ambivalence. Opportunities stall. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. If you feel apologetic when presenting your offer, that emotion transmits. People do not invest confidently in someone who is unsure about receiving. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Mastery includes dissolving inherited beliefs. Examine the messages you absorbed. Did authority figures criticize wealthy individuals? Did media portray success as exploitation? Did relatives resent those who advanced financially? Those impressions form internal scripts. Scripts influence behavior. Behavior produces results. Results reinforce scripts. To interrupt the cycle, you bring awareness. Awareness dissolves automation. You consciously redefine wealth. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. If the source of existence is infinite, reflecting that infinity is alignment. Limiting yourself does not honor humility. It denies potential. Wealth is responsibility, not betrayal. Another pattern appears in high earners. They break income ceilings. They celebrate briefly. Then anxiety increases. They fear losing it. They fear judgment. They fear expectations. Instead of stabilizing at the new level, they subconsciously create decline. This restores psychological comfort. Comfort is not growth. Growth requires recalibration. It's about discipline. Discipline to remain at elevated standards. Discipline to normalize higher numbers. Discipline to maintain expanded identity. You practice receiving without apology. You practice speaking about money without discomfort. You practice charging appropriately without justification. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Being more money means embodying self-trust. It means recognizing that increasing income does not diminish others. Scarcity thinking assumes limited supply. Abundance thinking recognizes creative capacity. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. When consciousness expands beyond comparison, wealth flows more freely. Comparison fuels guilt. Purpose dissolves it. When your financial growth is tied to meaningful contribution, the narrative shifts. You are not extracting. You are generating. You are not hoarding. You are circulating. Wealth is responsibility, not betrayal. Responsibility demands integrity. Integrity demands clarity. Clarity demands inner alignment. If your internal story says wealth makes you selfish, update the story. If your internal story says success isolates you, expand your circle. If your internal story says money conflicts with spirituality, revisit your definition of spirit. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means free from inherited shame, free from unconscious ceilings, free from emotional contradiction. When inner conflict dissolves, external growth accelerates. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor, and there is nothing immoral about prosperity when it is grounded in service. Struggle is not sacred. Expansion is sacred. Expansion includes financial maturity. You no longer apologize for ambition. You no longer minimize your vision. You no longer sabotage breakthroughs. You integrate wealth into your identity as stewardship. You steward resources. You steward influence. You steward opportunity. Wealth is responsibility, not betrayal. With guilt dismantled, energy stabilizes. When energy stabilizes, income stabilizes. When identity elevates, revenue follows. You have confronted the programming. You have separated truth from conditioning. Now you are ready to claim something deeper. Not just freedom from guilt, but ownership of abundance. Chapter 5. Abundance is your birthright. Abundance is the original setting. It is not a reward. It is not a privilege. It is not reserved for a select few. It is design. Look at nature carefully. A single tree produces thousands of leaves. A single season produces millions of seeds. The ocean holds uncountable waves in constant motion. Nothing in the natural world apologizes for multiplying. Trees do not shrink to make other trees comfortable. Rivers do not slow down to appear humble. Mountains do not lower themselves to avoid attention. Expansion is natural. Contraction is taught. You were born into expansion. As a child, your curiosity was limitless. Your imagination had no ceiling. Your desire to explore was instinctive. No one had to teach you to want more. You had to be taught to limit yourself. Scarcity is learned. Abundance is default design. Somewhere along the way, messages were introduced. Be realistic. Don't aim too high. Stay safe. Know your place. These phrases appear practical, but they often carry subtle contraction. Contraction narrows identity. Narrow identity reduces action. Reduced action shrinks outcomes. Expansion is natural. Contraction is taught. When you observe ecosystems, you see cooperation and competition intertwined. Growth happens in cycles. Energy circulates. Nothing remains stagnant. Abundance is not static wealth. It is dynamic flow. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. If energy in nature is designed to circulate and multiply, financial energy follows similar principles. Stagnation creates decay. Circulation creates vitality. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. Creation itself demonstrates excess. There are more stars than you can count, more grains of sand than you can measure, more variations of life than you can catalog. Why would you assume that human prosperity must be limited? That assumption is conditioning. Scarcity is learned. Abundance is default design. When a child reaches for something greater, encouragement fuels growth. When that same desire is repeatedly restrained, ambition compresses. Over time, restraint feels normal. Normal becomes identity. Identity shapes reality. You cannot have more money before you be more money. To be more money is to reconnect with your original expansive nature. It is to remember that growth is inherent. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If your consciousness assumes limitation, you will unconsciously reinforce it. If your consciousness expects increase, your perception shifts. You begin noticing opportunity. You begin creating leverage. You begin expanding capacity. Expansion is natural. Contraction is taught. Consider how nature handles resources. When conditions are favorable, growth accelerates. When conditions are harsh, systems adapt. But even in difficulty, the impulse toward expansion remains. Seeds wait for the right season. Roots search for water. Life pushes outward. You are designed the same way. The desire for prosperity is not greed. It is expression. It is potential seeking form. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Poverty does not align with the architecture of creation. Abundance aligns with it. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. If you emotionally normalize growth, you move toward it. If you emotionally rehearse limitation, you recreate it. Emotion directs perception. Perception directs behavior. Behavior directs outcome. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion, whether subtle, whether obvious. It's always reliant upon emotion. The same is true for earning. If earning more feels unnatural, you resist it. If earning more feels inevitable, you align with it. Expansion is natural. Contraction is taught. Look at how quickly industries scale when innovation is embraced. Technology multiplies influence. Ideas replicate globally in seconds. Systems expand when aligned with growth. Individuals function similarly. When you remove internal resistance, your output increases. When output increases, value compounds. When value compounds, wealth follows. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Mastery includes aligning with abundance as identity, not forcing growth, allowing it. Allowing requires trust. Trust reduces tension. Tension blocks flow. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means internally abundant. It means believing that opportunities regenerate. It means understanding that value can be created repeatedly. It means seeing setbacks as temporary adjustments, not permanent verdicts. Scarcity thinking interprets delay as denial. Abundance thinking interprets delay as preparation. Expansion is natural. Contraction is taught. Observe how language shapes expectation. If you constantly say, "There isn't enough," your nervous system contracts. If you consistently affirm, "I can create more," your mind searches for solutions. Solutions emerge when space exists. Space appears when fear subsides. Fear subsides when identity stabilizes. You are not competing for a fixed pie. You are participating in creative generation. Markets evolve. Needs change. Skills adapt. New value is always possible. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. Reflecting abundance does not deprive others. It demonstrates possibility. When one person expands ethically, others see new standards. Standards elevate culture. Culture influences opportunity. Opportunity multiplies impact. Expansion is natural. Contraction is taught. This is not about reckless consumption. It is about aligned growth. It is about disciplined increase. It's about discipline. Discipline to upgrade your skills continuously. Discipline to refine your thinking. Discipline to invest wisely. Discipline to circulate resources intentionally. Abundance without discipline dissipates. Discipline without abundance stagnates. Integrated together, they produce sustainable prosperity. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. Consciousness that expects expansion behaves differently. It takes calculated risks. It builds assets. It seeks mentorship. It thinks generationally. Scarcity focuses on preservation. Abundance focuses on multiplication. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Being more money means thinking in terms of scale. Scale of impact. Scale of systems. Scale of contribution. When you normalize expansion internally, external structures reflect it. Expansion is natural. Contraction is taught. You release the narrative that wealth is rare. You reject the belief that only a few can thrive. You understand that growth is renewable. Your birthright is not comfort. Your birthright is capacity. Capacity to think expansively. Capacity to create abundantly. Capacity to circulate generously. There is no guilt in growth. There is alignment in increase. As you accept abundance as inherent, your posture changes. You stop negotiating against yourself. You stop shrinking to fit inherited limitations. You step into scale. This is not arrogance. It is remembrance. You remember that life moves outward. You remember that energy multiplies. You remember that expansion is the rule, not the exception. Expansion is natural. Contraction is taught. With this recognition, you are no longer asking permission to grow. You are aligning with what already is. And once you accept abundance as your birthright, the next step becomes practical. Because expansion must translate into structure. Consciousness must convert into tangible results. You have reclaimed your right to grow. Now you must learn how to operate in the physical world with precision. Chapter 6. The Physical Plane. Master the realm of effect. The physical plane is the realm of results. It is where ideas become products, where vision becomes infrastructure, where intention becomes income. Energy must take form. Thought must translate into structure. Abundance must become tangible. Money manifests through skill, value, leverage, and systems. This is not abstract. It is mechanical. You are rewarded in proportion to the value you can consistently deliver. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Skill is developed. It is trained. It is refined. It is sharpened through repetition. Natural talent is useful. Discipline mastery is decisive. It's about discipline. Discipline to practice when no one is watching. Discipline to improve when results are slow. Discipline to raise standards continuously. On the physical plane, Effort alone is insufficient. Effort without precision produces exhaustion. Precision multiplies output. If you want expanded income, increase measurable value. Ask directly, what problem do I solve? How effectively do I solve it? How many people can I solve it for simultaneously? Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Consider business ownership. When you own equity, you own leverage. Your income is no longer capped by hours. You build an asset that generates revenue beyond your immediate labor. That is scale. Scale is amplified effect. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. On the physical plane, that energy organizes through systems. Systems reduce chaos. Systems create predictability. Predictability builds trust. Trust sustains revenue. If income depends entirely on your constant presence, growth stalls. Leverage expands output. Leverage can be technology. Leverage can be people. Leverage can be capital. Investments are another expression of leverage. When capital is allocated intelligently, it compounds. Compounding is expansion embedded in time. A single disciplined investment strategy can outperform years of scattered effort. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Develop financial literacy. Understand assets versus liabilities. Understand cash flow versus consumption. Understand appreciation versus depreciation. These are not optional topics. They are foundational. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. But reflection requires structure. A mirror must be clean to reflect clearly. Your systems are that mirror. Disorganization leaks energy. Scattered attention reduces productivity. Clarity accelerates results. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If your consciousness is scattered, your operations will be scattered. If your consciousness is structured, your results will reflect order. Mastery of the physical plane begins with personal standards. Do you show up on time? Do you deliver what you promise? Do you track performance metrics? Professional reliability compounds reputation. Reputation compounds opportunity. Opportunity compounds wealth. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Consider scalable impact. A consultant trading hours for payment reaches a ceiling quickly. A consultant who builds a digital program expands reach globally. The knowledge is the same. The structure differs. Structure determines magnitude. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Mastery on this plane includes execution. Ideas without implementation produce nothing. Implementation requires momentum. Momentum requires clarity. Clarity requires decision. Decision eliminates hesitation. Hesitation slows expansion. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. If you possess valuable insight but refuse to structure it effectively, impact remains limited. Impact requires distribution. Distribution requires systems. Systems require planning. Planning requires focus. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. If you feel overwhelmed by logistics, you avoid structure. Avoidance creates inconsistency. Inconsistency reduces trust. Stabilize emotionally, then build methodically. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. Brand perception influences decisions. Presentation influences confidence. Communication influences conversion. Invest in competence. Invest in clarity. Invest in credibility. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. On the physical plane, measurable improvement is visible. Track revenue. Track expenses. Track growth rates. Track customer retention. Data reveals truth. Truth informs refinement. Refinement increases efficiency. Efficiency increases margin. Margin creates flexibility. Flexibility fuels expansion. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Being more money physically means operating at higher standards. Higher standards of execution. Higher standards of presentation. Higher standards of delivery. Raising standards elevates positioning. Positioning influences pricing. Pricing influences profitability. Leverage multiplies effort. An employee exchanges time. An owner builds assets. An investor allocates capital. A visionary integrates all three. Integration creates resilience. It's about discipline. Discipline to reinvest profits rather than inflate lifestyle prematurely. Discipline to prioritize long-term assets over short-term validation. Discipline to delay gratification. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Physical mastery also includes health. Energy sustains productivity. If your body collapses, output declines. Treat health as infrastructure. Treat time as capital. Treat attention as currency. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If you see yourself as capable of managing larger operations, you prepare differently. You document processes. You delegate strategically. You remove bottlenecks. Bottlenecks restrict flow. Flow accelerates growth. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. But abundance expressed without structure dissolves quickly. Structure protects growth. Protection preserves momentum. Momentum compounds into scale. On this plane, excuses are replaced with metrics. Emotion is replaced with evaluation. Vision is paired with execution. Execution separates intention from achievement. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. You do not wait for permission. You refine your craft. You design systems. You create leverage. You execute consistently. As you master the physical realm, income becomes predictable. Predictability reduces stress. Reduced stress increases strategic thinking. Strategic thinking unlocks further expansion. You have aligned with abundance. You have stabilized emotionally. You have dismantled guilt. Now you have built structure. The physical plane responds to precision. But structure alone is not sufficient. Because behind every system is thought. Behind every result is belief. Behind every level of income is identity. You have mastered effect. Now you must master cause. Chapter 7. The Mental Plane. Control the cause of reality. The physical plane reflects. The mental plane creates. Every external result begins as an internal structure. Before income increases, identity shifts. Before opportunity appears, belief adjusts. Before wealth stabilizes, self-concept expands. Your income mirrors your identity, not your wishes, not your temporary motivation. Your identity. Beliefs shape earning ceilings. If you believe earning a certain amount is a lot, that belief becomes a threshold. When you approach it, discomfort surfaces. Discomfort triggers subtle self-sabotage. You delay decisions. You procrastinate outreach. You reduce visibility. The mind protects familiar territory. Familiar feels safe, even when familiar is small. Your income mirrors your identity. If you identify as someone who gets by, you will consistently create circumstances that validate survival. If you identify as someone who builds, you will organize your life around expansion. Identity directs perception. Perception directs behavior. Behavior directs results. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. Consciousness determines what you believe is possible. Possibility determines how you act. Action determines what materializes. Most financial limitations are psychological. They are internal narratives replayed unconsciously. I'm not good with money. People like me don't become wealthy. I'm not a numbers person. I don't deserve more. These statements appear harmless. They are not. They are instructions. The subconscious accepts repetition as truth. Repeated thoughts solidify into identity. Identity becomes automatic. Your income mirrors your identity. If you want increased income, you must examine the beliefs that anchor your current level. Ask directly, what do I believe about wealthy people? What do I believe about my capacity? What do I believe about money and spirituality? There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Yet if you unconsciously associate wealth with arrogance, you will resist becoming wealthy. Resistance blocks consistency. Inconsistency blocks growth. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. When your mind is fragmented about money, your results fragment. Clarity produces alignment. Alignment produces momentum. Consider identity level shifts. Instead of saying, I want to make more money, you declare, I am someone who creates wealth. That statement changes posture. It changes decision-making. It changes tolerance levels. A person who creates wealth behaves differently from someone who hopes for it. Your income mirrors your identity. If you see yourself as a high-level operator, you invest in development. If you see yourself as average, you settle for adequacy. Self-perception sets standards. Standards shape habits. Habits generate outcomes. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Being more money mentally means upgrading internal language. It means eliminating self-deprecating humor about finances. It means refusing to reinforce scarcity in conversation. It means speaking with certainty about growth. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. Emotions are influenced by interpretation. Interpretation is shaped by belief. If you interpret a setback as proof of inadequacy, motivation collapses. If you interpret it as feedback, strategy improves. Your income mirrors your identity. Neuroscience confirms that the brain filters reality. It prioritizes information that aligns with existing beliefs. If you believe opportunities are rare, you overlook them. If you believe opportunities are abundant, you notice them. Attention selects experience. Experience reinforces belief. The cycle continues. To elevate financially, disrupt the cycle. Introduce a new identity deliberately. I am disciplined. I am valuable. I am capable of managing large sums. I am someone who creates wealth. Repetition imprints. Imprinting reshapes subconscious patterns. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Mastery begins in thought. Thought governs focus. Focus influences energy. Energy shapes action. Action produces income. Your income mirrors your identity. If you internally feel inferior around affluent individuals, your nervous system signals imbalance. You unconsciously defer. You shrink in conversation. You hesitate to negotiate. Self-assurance changes dynamics. Equal posture invites equal opportunity. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. If you see yourself as an extension of that abundance, confidence becomes natural, not arrogance. Alignment. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means mentally expansive. It means believing growth is normal. It means perceiving challenges as upgrades. It means expecting elevation. Identity level shifts require discipline. It's about discipline. Discipline to monitor thoughts. Discipline to replace limiting narratives. Discipline to maintain expansive self-concept even when evidence fluctuates. External results may lag. Identity must remain steady. Your income mirrors your identity. When identity rises, behavior recalibrates automatically. You pursue higher-level partnerships. You enter rooms that previously intimidated you. You raise prices without apology. You allocate capital strategically. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. Consciousness that expects scale seeks structure. Consciousness that expects survival seeks relief. Choose scale. Your identity determines what feels normal. If a certain income level feels extraordinary, You treat it as temporary. If it feels standard, you stabilize there. Normalize expansion internally. Visualization is useful when paired with embodiment. Do not merely imagine wealth. Adopt the demeanor. Adopt the speech. Adopt the decision-making standard. Ask consistently, what would someone at my next level decide? Then decide accordingly. Your income mirrors your identity. This is cause and effect. Mental architecture precedes material architecture. Belief precedes bank balance. Self-concept precedes revenue. You are not waiting for proof to believe. You are believing to produce proof. This is control of the mental plane. As you solidify identity, something powerful happens. Doubt weakens. Hesitation decreases. Consistency strengthens. Consistency compounds. Compounding builds wealth. You now understand that the mind is the blueprint. The physical world constructs what the mind authorizes. You have aligned belief. You have elevated identity. But there is one more layer. Beyond thought. Beyond identity. The dimension that fuels both. Chapter 8. The Spiritual Plane, Wealth as Divine Expression. The spiritual plane is the source. It is the field beneath thought. It is the awareness beneath identity. It is the intelligence animating life itself. Before you act, you are. Before you build, you exist. Before you accumulate, you contain potential. God consciousness equals expansion and creativity. It is not passive. It is generative. It is expressive. Creation is evidence of it. Galaxies extend endlessly. Ecosystems regenerate continuously. Life diversifies without apology. The divine expresses through expansion. If divinity were restrictive, existence would be minimal. Instead, it is abundant. Color is abundant. Sound is abundant. Variation is abundant. Why would wealth be excluded from this pattern? Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. It is organized creative power. It is capacity quantified. It is influence mobilized. When aligned consciously, it becomes an instrument. Wealth enables contribution at scale. Without resources, vision remains contained. With resources, vision travels. A single idea funded properly can educate millions. A single innovation financed strategically can transform industries. A single mission supported adequately can shift culture. The divine expresses through expansion. Expansion includes reach. Reach requires infrastructure. Infrastructure requires capital. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Chronic limitation restricts your ability to respond to calling. If you feel inspired to build, but lack means, frustration follows. Frustration is misaligned potential. Potential seeks expression. Expression requires channel. Wealth is one of those channels. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. Not because accumulation is sacred, but because capacity is sacred. Capacity to protect. Capacity to provide. Capacity to empower. Throughout history, spiritual movements expanded through support. Temples were constructed. Texts were preserved. Communities were sustained. All required resources. Even ascetic traditions depended on patronage. Contribution and capital intersect. The divine expresses through expansion. Consider modern impact. Philanthropic foundations fund research. Entrepreneurs finance clean energy. Investors support education initiatives. These actions multiply effect beyond individual effort. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If your consciousness associates wealth with ego, you distance yourself from it. If your consciousness associates wealth with stewardship, you approach it responsibly. Stewardship transforms possession into purpose. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Being more money spiritually means embodying alignment. It means recognizing yourself as conduit, not container. Energy flows through you, not to you alone. When wealth flows through aligned individuals, it amplifies good. When wealth flows through misaligned individuals, it magnifies distortion. Money is neutral. Intention directs it. The divine expresses through expansion. Expansion without awareness becomes excess. Expansion with awareness becomes elevation. Spiritual maturity integrates power with humility. Humility is clarity about source. You understand that creativity moves through you. You do not worship money. You steward it. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means spiritually anchored. It means secure in identity beyond possessions. It means calm whether assets rise or fall. Internal wealth stabilizes external management. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. If you spiritually fear power, you repel influence. If you spiritually accept responsibility, you attract opportunity. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. The same applies to giving. Generosity feels expansive. Withholding feels contracted. Expansion aligns with divine nature. Contraction signals fear. The divine expresses through expansion. This does not require extravagance. It requires alignment. Ask yourself, if resources increased significantly, would your character sustain them? Would your discipline manage them? Would your purpose direct them? It's about discipline. Discipline to maintain integrity under pressure. Discipline to prioritize service over ego. Discipline to remain grounded as scale increases. Spiritual wealth and material wealth can coexist harmoniously. They are not opponents. They are layers. The spiritual plane informs the mental plane. The mental plane shapes the physical plane. Alignment across all three produces sustainable prosperity. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. When you see it as divine expression rather than material obsession, conflict dissolves. There is no contradiction between meditation and multiplication. There is no opposition between faith and finance. There is synergy. The divine expresses through expansion. Expansion of awareness. Expansion of influence. Expansion of generosity. Wealth enables you to respond instantly when called to act. It enables you to support causes without hesitation. It enables you to build without delay. Delayed contribution is constrained potential. Immediate contribution is empowered alignment. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. You do not pursue wealth to validate ego. You pursue wealth to increase capacity. Capacity multiplies impact. Impact shapes legacy. Legacy influences generations. You are not separate from divine creativity. You are an extension of it. To deny expansion is to deny expression. To accept expansion is to participate consciously. The divine expresses through expansion. You now understand wealth as sacred capacity. You see money as instrument, not idol. You align growth with purpose. But alignment must be sustained. Because even spiritually aligned individuals can struggle with receiving. You may be willing to give. But can you hold? Can you expand your tolerance for prosperity? Chapter 9. Increase your capacity to receive. Earning money is one skill. Holding money is another. Many people know how to generate income. Few know how to sustain it. Even fewer know how to expand it without losing stability. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Not your intentions. Not your affirmations. Not your temporary motivation. Your internal tolerance determines your external consistency. You can create a breakthrough and still sabotage the level. You can receive a windfall and quickly dissipate it. You can scale revenue and unconsciously introduce chaos. Because capacity is emotional before it is financial. Your nervous system sets your net worth. If wealth feels unsafe, you will unconsciously reduce it. If abundance feels overwhelming, you will subconsciously restore familiarity. Familiarity often means smaller numbers. This pattern is visible everywhere. Athletes sign massive contracts and declare bankruptcy within years. Entrepreneurs experience rapid growth and then implode operationally. Professionals receive promotions and immediately increase expenses to match, eliminating margin. The issue is not intelligence. It is tolerance. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. Consciousness includes emotional regulation. If your identity is calibrated for a certain income range, exceeding it triggers stress. Stress activates contraction. Contraction initiates self-correction. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Consider someone who grows up in financial instability. As a child, money discussions were tense. Bills created arguments. Spending produced anxiety. Savings felt fragile. The body learned to associate money with pressure. Years later, when income increases significantly, the body does not interpret it as safety. It interprets it as unfamiliar intensity. Unfamiliar intensity can feel like danger. So the system seeks relief. Relief might appear as impulsive spending. Relief might appear as poor investments. Relief might appear as avoidance of higher-level responsibility. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Being more money includes emotional regulation at higher levels. It means normalizing larger numbers. It means sitting calmly with expanded opportunity. It means feeling grounded while managing increased resources. Your nervous system sets your net worth. If receiving 5 figures feels normal, but 6 figures feels intimidating, you will unconsciously gravitate toward the former. The body prefers known terrain. Growth requires acclimation. Acclimation requires repetition. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. If you feel anxious when checking accounts, that anxiety influences decisions. If you feel steady and clear, you act strategically. Emotional steadiness is financial infrastructure. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. If energy flows into a container that cannot hold it, it spills. If energy flows into a stable container, it accumulates. You are that container. Strengthen the container. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. But reflection requires capacity. If you subconsciously believe you are unworthy of wealth, receiving feels uncomfortable. Unworthiness manifests as leakage. You discount your services. You neglect follow-up. You hesitate to negotiate. You undercharge despite value. These are not strategic errors. They are identity signals. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Emotional tolerance can be trained. Just as muscles adapt to heavier weight, the nervous system adapts to greater responsibility. Start by expanding gradually. Increase your pricing incrementally and observe your internal reaction. Invest larger sums strategically and monitor your emotional state. Allow yourself to see higher balances without immediately dispersing them. Stay present with expansion. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. If poverty feels comfortable, it is because your body recognizes its rhythm. Comfort is not alignment. Comfort is familiarity. Expansion requires recalibration. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means emotionally spacious. It means abundance does not destabilize you. It means you can hold success without panic. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. Receiving is also emotional. When someone pays you generously, can you accept without deflecting? Can you say thank you without minimizing? Can you maintain eye contact without apology? These small behaviors reveal internal calibration. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Observe how you react when income increases. Do you celebrate briefly and then brace for loss? Do you immediately anticipate a problem? That anticipation creates tension. Tension influences choices. Choices shape results. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Mastery includes remaining calm at higher stakes. Higher revenue means larger decisions. Larger decisions require steadiness. Steadiness builds longevity. Longevity builds legacy. It's about discipline. Discipline to pause before reactive spending. Discipline to maintain savings instead of proving success externally. Discipline to separate emotional impulses from financial strategy. Capacity expands with intentional practice. Normalize wealth visually. Spend time in environments where higher levels are standard. Engage in conversations about investment and scale. Study those who manage significant assets responsibly. Exposure reduces intimidation. Reduced intimidation increases tolerance. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Breathing techniques regulate stress. Meditation stabilizes awareness. Physical training increases resilience. Healthy routines support clarity. Financial capacity is holistic. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If your consciousness is grounded, fluctuations do not destabilize you. Markets shift. Opportunities fluctuate. Revenue cycles vary. Your internal steadiness maintains direction. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. But abundance must be sustained. Sustainability requires internal expansion. You do not merely earn more. You become someone who holds more. You become someone who manages more. You become someone who circulates more. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Being more money emotionally means comfort with scale, comfort with visibility, comfort with leadership, comfort with responsibility. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Raise that baseline intentionally. Allow larger numbers to feel normal. Allow expanded influence to feel natural. Allow prosperity to feel safe. As capacity increases, stability increases. As stability increases, growth accelerates. You are no longer reacting to wealth. You are sustaining it. You are no longer overwhelmed by opportunity. You are directing it. You have expanded your container. Now it is time to refine what flows into it, because capacity alone is insufficient without distinct value. Chapter 10. Become valuable beyond competition. Value is the currency of influence. Money flows naturally to those who are indispensable, not to those who are convenient, not to those who are replaceable. Be so valuable you cannot be ignored. Ordinary effort competes in crowded spaces. Extraordinary mastery creates its own space. Specialization isolates opportunity. Wealth flows to rare, specialized value. The more unique the skill, the less competition exists. The more precise the knowledge, the higher the demand. The more applicable the solution, the more income accumulates. Consider top-tier experts. Surgeons who perform rare procedures charge extraordinary fees. Consultants with proprietary strategies scale impact across industries. Athletes with unmatched talent negotiate contracts others cannot. Each demonstrates one principle. Scarcity in skill produces abundance in reward. Your nervous system sets your net worth. If you tolerate mediocrity, you earn mediocrity. If you cultivate exceptional skill, you earn exceptional reward. The mental plane shapes the financial plane. Be so valuable you cannot be ignored. Value is multidimensional. Technical mastery is one layer. Emotional intelligence is another. Communication and influence form another. Combine them, and you create a package impossible to bypass. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. Abundance flows where value is amplified. Abundance seeks those who multiply it consciously. Abundance rewards those who contribute meaningfully. Real-world examples illustrate this principle. A client doubled his prices after embracing his true worth. Initially, clients left. Months later, he He tripled his influence and revenue. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. He did not chase clients. He did not negotiate for attention. He became so valuable that ignoring him was impossible. Your income mirrors your identity. If you identify as average, opportunities remain average. If you identify as extraordinary, the world responds accordingly. Identity and skill form a magnetic combination. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. Your self-perception calibrates the scale of your influence. The more confident and competent you feel internally, the more expansive external results become. The less secure you feel, the more scarcity constricts your reality. Be so valuable you cannot be ignored. This does not require arrogance. It requires absolute focus on contribution. It requires uncompromising commitment to excellence. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. Confidence in skill fosters clarity in decision-making. Clarity attracts opportunity. Opportunity generates revenue. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. Clients, customers, investors, they feel your value. They sense alignment between competence and confidence. They respond emotionally by choosing you over others. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means recognizing your worth before the world does. Rich within means holding space for abundance to flow without hesitation. Rich within means taking responsibility for the energy you bring into transactions. Discipline is critical. Discipline to continue refining skills when success is already visible. Discipline to seek mastery in areas ignored by competitors. Discipline to invest in yourself relentlessly. Be so valuable you cannot be ignored. The divine expresses through expansion. Your unique contributions are a reflection of creative energy. When you multiply value, you multiply life. When you hold nothing back, the universe responds proportionally. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Mastery includes refining skill, expanding identity, and sustaining emotional capacity. All three layers intersect in value creation. All three determine the scale of your financial flow. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Being replaceable guarantees limits. Being invisible ensures stagnation. Being ordinary secures scarcity. Be so valuable you cannot be ignored. You no longer compete for scraps. You now occupy your rightful space. You now magnetize resources instead of pleading for them. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Your identity directs attention. Now that you are beyond competition internally and externally, you are ready to multiply influence systematically. Chapter 11. Leverage time, people, and systems. Time is the most finite resource. Money cannot replace wasted hours. Wealth cannot expand if every dollar depends on your labor. If it depends on you, it limits you. True wealth is not measured by activity. It is measured by results. Results multiply when you detach from hourly effort. Leverage is the bridge between effort and scale. Time is leverage. Automation is leverage. People are leverage. Capital is leverage. When you organize systems, the world works for you. When you delegate strategically, your energy compounds. When you invest intelligently, capital works for you even while you sleep. If it depends on you, it limits you. Consider a service provider trading hours for income. Each hour is capped. Even with maximum efficiency, output plateaus. Expansion stalls without leverage. Now consider systems. A single process executed consistently produces results without constant oversight. A sales funnel generates leads while you focus on strategy. A subscription model ensures predictable cash flow. Automation converts repetitive effort into ongoing output. Software can manage operations. Analytics can detect inefficiencies. Notifications can trigger action before problems arise. Leverage people strategically. Teams multiply capacity. Delegation is not abdication. Leadership is about aligning talent with outcomes. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Rich within means recognizing when your presence is required and when systems can perform. Rich within means orchestrating energy rather than exhausting it. Rich within means directing influence rather than micromanaging effort. Investments create passive expansion. Capital can be allocated to growth opportunities. Assets multiply wealth beyond personal labor. Interest, dividends, and returns create compounding momentum. Your nervous system sets your net worth. If you micromanage, stress rises. Stress contracts energy. Contracted energy slows wealth. Delegation stabilizes nervous system and increases capacity. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. The same principle applies to giving responsibility. People respond emotionally to trust. Trust inspires initiative. Initiative amplifies results. Discipline is non-negotiable. Discipline to document processes. Discipline to monitor systems regularly. Discipline to invest in capable individuals. Be so valuable you cannot be ignored. Systematic leverage allows your unique value to scale exponentially. You contribute at higher levels. You create impact without burning out. You build assets that generate influence beyond immediate action. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. The energy of money flows where capacity exists. Capacity is amplified by leverage. Without leverage, growth is finite. With leverage, growth is near limitless. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. The Creator works through systems, networks, and natural laws. So must you. You must align effort with structure. You must design processes to support vision. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Mastery includes multiplying influence without multiplying personal exhaustion. Mastery includes orchestrating teams with clarity. Mastery includes leveraging time as currency. Your income mirrors your identity. Identity of a visionary demands leverage. Identity of a leader requires delegation. Identity of a God-mind operator executes strategically rather than reactively. If it depends on you, it limits you. This principle applies across all domains: financial, personal, and spiritual. Scale your impact by releasing control where unnecessary. Scale your wealth by allowing capital, time, and systems to do the heavy lifting. Be rich within, expand externally. Be disciplined internally, amplify influence externally. Be masterful within, multiply abundance without. The nervous system tolerates abundance when effort is distributed. Your identity expands as leverage multiplies. Your results accelerate as dependence on self diminishes. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Leverage multiplies both. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Now that you have mastered leverage, you are ready to think multidimensionally about money. Chapter 12. Destroy the ceiling of enough. Enough is a trap. It whispers, "Stop here. You are safe." It disguises fear as contentment. Small goals protect comfort, not destiny. Many people settle silently. They accept a salary that suffices. They pursue projects that are manageable. They avoid risk under the guise of practicality. Enough is subjective. It is rarely measured against true potential. It is almost always measured against external opinion. It masks fear of judgment. Playing small keeps you accepted. Society applauds mediocrity disguised as humility. Family praises stability over expansion. Peers encourage modesty to maintain comfort zones. Small goals protect comfort, not destiny. Fear of criticism restricts action. Fear of exposure limits ambition. Fear of failure constrains innovation. You cannot build empires by protecting comfort. Comfort is static. Destiny is dynamic. Destiny requires discomfort. The mental plane sets ceilings. Beliefs about what is sufficient define your limits. If you think $100,000 is enough, your behavior aligns with that threshold. If you think $1 million is achievable, your behavior stretches toward it. Your income mirrors your identity. Identity of enough produces patterns of avoidance. Identity of expansion produces behaviors that maximize opportunity. The nervous system tolerates what it expects. Small goals protect comfort, not destiny. Examine where you self-limit. Do you stop at minor achievements to avoid envy? Do you undercharge to avoid scrutiny? Do you reduce visibility to minimize risk of judgment? All these behaviors are symptoms. Symptoms of internal ceilings. Symptoms of fear disguised as wisdom. Symptoms of identity that limits abundance. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. Energy flows toward expansion. Energy contracts around smallness. Energy respects audacity, not restraint. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. The Creator never paused at enough. Galaxies do not stop at familiarity. Oceans do not halt at the shore. You are an expression of that same expansion. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. The same applies to ambition. If you emotionally fear excess, you unconsciously limit income. If you emotionally embrace growth, your actions align with opportunity. Until you learn to master the energy of money, you'll never experience it to the way that you want. Mastery requires breaking ceilings. Breaking ceilings begins with thought. Breaking ceilings continues with identity. Breaking ceilings solidifies in action. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Being more money means redefining enough. Being more money means playing big regardless of judgment. Being more money means expecting abundance as your default. Discipline is non-negotiable. Discipline to act beyond comfort. Discipline to sustain momentum despite criticism. Discipline to recalibrate internal expectations daily. Small goals protect comfort, not destiny. Ask yourself, am I pursuing what satisfies or what expands? Am I accepting enough or demanding more from myself? Am I staying in the box or stepping into uncharted potential? Fear disguises itself as enough. Faith expresses itself as expansion. The divine expresses through those willing to move beyond limitation. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Your identity determines your ceiling. Destroy the ceiling of enough. Recalibrate expectations. Expand comfort with scale. Normalize audacious goals. You are no longer constrained by fear. You are no longer limited by approval. You are no longer restricted by the imaginary lines others draw. The world responds to boldness. The universe rewards courage. Energy flows toward expansion, not hesitation. You have identified ceilings. You have acknowledged fear. You are ready to demolish limitation. Small goals protect comfort, not destiny. Now, prepare to transform comfort into mastery. Chapter 13. Wealth amplifies character. Money magnifies who you are. It does not change you. It reveals patterns that already exist. It exposes hidden tendencies and untested traits. Wealth amplifies character. If you are patient under pressure, money deepens patience. If you are impulsive, money accelerates recklessness. If you are disciplined, money compounds your discipline. Money reveals, not corrupts. It is neutral energy. It mirrors the internal landscape. It amplifies intentions. Consider generosity. If you are generous while broke, wealth expands that generosity exponentially. You give more freely. You contribute with less hesitation. You impact on a larger scale. If you are selfish, wealth exposes that trait. Resources magnify limitations. Wealth amplifies everything present within. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. The way you allocate money reveals your inner patterns. Emotional regulation dictates financial flow. Character dictates how energy circulates. Your nervous system sets your net worth. If your body contracts around abundance, you resist wealth. If your body expands in confidence, you welcome greater capacity. Internal alignment produces external manifestation. The flow of money that you experience in reality is largely based on your emotions. How you feel about giving, receiving, saving, investing, and spending directly shapes outcomes. Wealth is a mirror. It shows you your emotional infrastructure. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. Wealth reveals the alignment of thought, emotion, and action. If you act with integrity, money reinforces integrity. If you act with negligence, money reinforces negligence. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Being rich within means cultivating the internal virtues wealth will amplify. It means establishing generosity, discipline, and clarity before capital arrives. It means preparing the self for the responsibility of scale. Discipline is non-negotiable. Discipline in thought ensures clarity. Discipline in action ensures consistency. Discipline in emotion ensures capacity to receive without distortion. You cannot have more money before you be more money. Being more money internally means you handle opportunity without fear. Being more money internally means you steward influence responsibly. Being more money internally means you hold resources without ego, scarcity, or compromise of principle. Real-world examples demonstrate this principle. Individuals who are charitable while broke scale generosity massively when wealthy. Entrepreneurs who are methodical while small automate structure as they grow. Leaders who maintain composure under pressure expand influence exponentially when wealth multiplies. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Your identity directs opportunity. Money magnifies who you are. Use this truth deliberately. Examine traits before scaling. Refine character before amplifying influence. If greed exists, wealth magnifies it. If integrity exists, wealth magnifies it. If vision exists, wealth magnifies it. Abundance demands self-awareness. Expansion demands discipline. Impact demands preparation. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. It is a force that amplifies alignment. It is a tool that manifests clarity. It is a lens that reveals the internal state. There is nothing noble or spiritual about being poor. Poverty conceals character. Abundance exposes it. Wealth requires readiness. Small actions compound with scale. Decisions magnify under wealth. Intentions shape outcomes exponentially. Be rich within, amplify externally. Be disciplined within, expand influence. Be prepared internally, receive wealth responsibly. Money magnifies who you are. Now that character is prepared, capacity expanded, and identity aligned, it is time to take action that activates consistent flow. Chapter 14. Build generational power. Think in decades, not paychecks. True wealth transcends the present. It is not about a single paycheck or a single transaction. It is about creating momentum that spans lifetimes. Wealth is a tool for legacy. Legacy is not inherited titles. Legacy is systems, knowledge, and structures that persist. Legacy is impact that outlives the individual. Think in decades, not paychecks. Generational power begins with education. Financial literacy must be taught early. Principles of investment, leverage, and abundance must be normalized. Children absorb patterns more than advice. Teach them to hold wealth with responsibility. Teach them that money is spiritual energy, not a reward or punishment. Wealth is ownership. Ownership of businesses. Ownership of intellectual property. Ownership of assets that compound over time. Ownership converts labor into long-term value. Ownership preserves opportunity across generations. Breaking scarcity cycles is essential. Many inherit poverty, fear, or limitation unconsciously. Patterns repeat unless intentionally interrupted. By creating systems of abundance, scarcity becomes an anomaly. Behavioral patterns shift when structure and education combine. Think in decades, not paychecks. Build trust in assets. Reinvest returns strategically. Avoid reactive spending based on transient desires. Generational wealth is cumulative, not impulsive. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. Emotional decisions can undermine legacy. Discipline in allocation safeguards future generations. Emotional intelligence compounds alongside capital. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Tolerance for wealth ensures inheritance sustainability. Without internal alignment, resources dissipate before potential is realized. Capacity for abundance must exist before generational transfer is possible. Money is actually linked to your state of consciousness. If you see wealth as personal, it remains fragile. If you see wealth as collective, it becomes unstoppable. The energy of money multiplies when it flows with vision. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. The Creator distributes energy, not scarcity. Generational wealth mirrors divine expansion. Structures created today echo decades into the future. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Scale value through systems, education, and mentorship. Protect assets through strategy, not fear. Multiply influence by empowering others to expand as well. Think in decades, not paychecks. This is a mindset shift. Immediate gratification limits impact. Delayed, disciplined growth multiplies legacy. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Being rich within allows you to handle multi-generational responsibility. Being rich within means thinking beyond self-interest. Being rich within creates structures that survive time, culture, and change. Discipline is required. Discipline to save strategically. Discipline to educate consistently. Discipline to manage resources responsibly. Discipline to expand rather than consume recklessly. The divine expresses through expansion. Abundance becomes a river, not a reservoir. Resources circulate through generations, amplifying opportunity. Impact multiplies geometrically rather than linearly. Small goals protect comfort, not destiny. Generational wealth requires audacity. Generational wealth requires foresight. Generational wealth requires courage to challenge inherited limitation. Your identity directs opportunity. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Your capacity governs your legacy. Think in decades, not paychecks. Build systems that educate. Build systems that accumulate. Build systems that protect and multiply. Create structures for your children. Create structures for your community. Create structures that honor the principle of expansion. Every choice compounds. Every investment matters. Every act of discipline scales beyond the present moment. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. Generational wealth is energy passed through aligned action. It is knowledge embedded in behavior. It is opportunity secured for those not yet born. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. When wealth is sustained, influence extends beyond you. When discipline guides accumulation, prosperity multiplies. When consciousness governs resource flow, scarcity ends. Think in decades, not paychecks. Now, You are ready to integrate all principles into unstoppable momentum. Chapter 15. Become a conduit, not a container. Flow creates growth. Stagnation creates decay. Wealth is energy. Energy cannot thrive when trapped. It must move. It must circulate. It must pass through you as a conduit, not pile up as a container. The richest individuals do not hoard. They distribute strategically. They amplify impact. They allow resources to become dynamic rather than static. Flow creates growth. Stagnation creates decay. If wealth stops at you, it becomes heavy. If wealth flows through you, it multiplies naturally. Money is spiritual. It is simply the unseen. It is the underlying energy behind reality. Energy expands when allowed to move. Energy contracts when clung to. Philanthropy is one form of conduit. Giving opens channels of abundance. Generosity signals confidence, not deficiency. Contribution aligns with divine expansion. Every act of value returned magnifies circulation. Flow creates growth. Stagnation creates decay. Mentorship is another conduit. Your knowledge, your experience, your insights become gifts. Teaching transforms potential into reality. When others succeed through your guidance, your influence compounds. Impact spreads without additional personal expenditure of energy. Infrastructure creates leverage for flow. Systems, organizations, and scalable processes move resources efficiently. Buildings, networks, and digital platforms extend reach. Wealth transforms into momentum rather than bottleneck. Flow is encoded into the structure itself. Being rich is a reflection of the abundance of the Creator. The Creator is never stagnant. Energy circulates. Ideas propagate. Impact multiplies. You mirror that same principle when you operate as a conduit. Your nervous system sets your net worth. When you resist flow, anxiety, fear, or attachment constrict resources. When you release flow, abundance enters without friction. Capacity is both internal and external. Being rich within allows energy to move naturally. The only way that you will be able to activate the God mind is by being rich within. Being rich within means seeing money as a medium of expression. Being rich within means embracing responsibility as a channel rather than a burden. Being rich within means harmonizing receiving and giving equally. Flow creates growth. Stagnation creates decay. Observe reality. Rivers do not hoard water. Forests do not hold sunlight. Air does not accumulate in one place. Energy moves, abundance multiplies. Every single purchase has always been reliant upon emotion. Whether subtle, whether obvious, it's always reliant upon emotion. The way you handle circulation reflects consciousness. If you cling, fear dominates decisions. If you release strategically, clarity directs outcomes. Skill creates value. Value attracts wealth. Leverage multiplies influence. Capacity sustains growth. Flow ensures longevity. Discipline remains critical. Discipline to give without attachment. Discipline to mentor consistently. Discipline to maintain and scale infrastructure responsibly. Being a conduit also honors legacy. Resources move through you to secure opportunities for future generations. Systems transfer knowledge. Mentorship preserves wisdom. Philanthropy instills values. Flow creates growth. Stagnation creates decay. This principle applies universally: financial, mental, spiritual, and emotional. Blocked energy stagnates life. Released energy generates transformation. Your wealth, influence, and capacity expand exponentially when you operate as a conduit. Your identity directs opportunity. Your nervous system sets your net worth. Your internal calibration determines the breadth of circulation. Being rich is not about accumulation alone. Being rich is about activation. Being rich is about movement, distribution, and impact. If you hoard knowledge, it dies with you. If you hoard resources, opportunity stops. If you hoard influence, expansion halts. Flow creates growth. Stagnation creates decay. Now you are ready to integrate all you have learned. You are capable of mastering money, identity, discipline, leverage, and legacy. You are capable of channeling wealth as energy, as a reflection of divine abundance. This is the God-mind operator principle. To receive fully, circulate fully. To create power, distribute power. To become infinite, act as a conduit, not a container. Your journey is complete, but your work has just begun. Flow consciously. Expand deliberately. Multiply relentlessly. You are not here to hold wealth. You are here to circulate it, transform reality, and amplify the divine in the world. Flow creates growth. Stagnation creates decay. Now, step into the infinite stream of abundance. Step into your destiny. Step into being a conduit of unstoppable expansion. In closing, now you understand. Money is not the enemy. Scarcity is. Struggle is not noble. Expansion is. You were never meant to shrink yourself to prove your spirituality. You were meant to expand so fully that your life becomes evidence of divine possibility. You cannot awaken higher consciousness while chained to financial fear. You cannot express infinite potential with limited resources. You cannot build a global impact with a survival mindset. Wealth is not about ego. It is about capacity. Capacity to give more. Capacity to build more. Capacity to influence more. Capacity to free yourself and others. The question is not, should I become rich? The question is, how powerful am I willing to become? Because the richer you become, consciously, intentionally, ethically, the more you dissolve fear, the more you expand your reach, the more God expresses through your decisions, your creations, your leadership. Stop apologizing for wanting more. Want more impact. Want more freedom. Want more expansion. Want more wealth. And then discipline yourself to become the person who can hold it. Here is your challenge. For the next 90 days, act as if wealth is your spiritual duty. Invest in skills. Eliminate excuses. Increase value daily. Raise your standards relentlessly. Do not chase money. Become the person money chases. Become so expanded, so disciplined, so aligned, that abundance has no choice but to flow toward you. Awaken fully. Expand unapologetically. Build relentlessly. And become as rich as you are capable of becoming. Your higher self is waiting. Start now.